Today's guest is nothing short of amazing. Tina Brandau had to relearn how to walk and talk in her 40s after being hit by a tree while on a run. She has gone on to write a best selling book called Standing Strong. She speaks all over the world and has founded a business called Success Coaching Solutions. Listen in to today's episode and get inspired. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Hello, late starters. It's your host, Andrea Vall, and I am here with the fantastic Tina Brandau. She is a success coach who empowers others to reach their goals. She's also a best-selling author, speaker, founder of Success Coaching Solutions, former C-suite executive, and successful serial entrepreneur. Welcome, Tina.
I am so excited to be here. I just love hanging out with you.
It's very cool. And we met at Jeff Walker's Launch Club.
Yes.
And when I heard your story about what you've kind of had to do as a late starter, which is learning to walk again and do everything again, that is just an amazing and inspirational story, as well as what you've done since then. So yeah, let's dive into all of this. So tell us a little bit about what, we were talking beforehand about Tina 2.0 and 3.0. So tell
Mhm.
us how that all evolved and what happened to you for this major health change that you had to endure.
Absolutely. So I do. I would refer to myself as Tina 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Tina 1.0 is what I was supposed to do all along. Go to school, get your degrees, go into your field, become successful, and climb the ladder, climb the ladder. And I did that until I was 40 years old. And I was doing a really good job at it until I had an accident. And that's when Tina 2.0 came into play. I'm just going to spoil it for everybody if that's okay. I was
Yeah.
hit in the head by a tree. It's not something that you normally hear about, and if you do hear
Right.
about it, they're not able to talk with you about it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I am amazed that I'm alive to be here, and more
Yep.
importantly, that I can actually even communicate. So,
Yeah.
that really created I didn't choose my 2.0, my 2.0 chose me. And you're
Mhm.
right, I had to learn to think again, to walk again, to talk again. I had to learn how to learn for a second time in my life. So Tina 2.0 came not because I wanted it, but because it was, frankly, knocking me upside the head.
Yeah. So you were out hiking. You were just out on a hike, is that
I
right?
went for a run. I was training for a
Yeah,
marathon and I
yeah,
was
yeah.
running through the woods and a tree just simply had dry rotted and it broke free from its roots. And I happened to be either you could say too slow or too fast or whatever
Yeah.
the case may
Yeah.
be. And I was directly in the path of the tree and it came down and did significant damage to me. I was left
Yeah.
with the functioning of a 3-year-old child
Mhm.
afterwards.
Mhm. Wow, that's amazing at age 40. And so yeah, and so you was someone with you, or did someone find you then?
No, no one was with me, and eventually, believe it or not, I found help, and how I found help was I had this thing on my arm that I had no idea what it really was at the time. I was so discombobulated would be the only
Yeah,
word, and I just
yeah.
happened to punch buttons, and I was punching them on my MP3 player, and then I did the same thing with the other thing in my other arm, which happened to be my cell phone, and it connected to someone who all I could just say bleed. That's the only word I could say is bleed, and
Oh,
they were able to get help
wow.
out to me, and, it's that thing where if somebody hadn't answered the phone, would I even be here
Right.
today? It's just such an amazing coincidence
Miracle.
of things that have come
Yeah.
together or a whole series of events that came together for me to be here with you today.
Right, right. That's incredible. That's
It is.
incredible. And so you then came back from that just through therapy, and you wrote your book about that.
I
Yeah,
did. So I came
yeah.
back through it not just So I did physical therapy, occupational therapy, so many therapies. I actually despise therapies now because of so much of the therapies.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is I came back through it very slowly. It was a slow
Uh-huh.
process and it took a lot of time, a lot of amazing physicians and healers that helped me through that process. But it really was a slow rebuild. And in case you may not know this about me, I'm not a very patient person. So I had to learn patience in this process. And then came the what do I do next piece. So I
Right.
had to go through the healing process, and that took literal years. My last surgeries were 10 years after my accident. So it was a long healing process.
Wow. Wow. That is crazy. That is a long healing process. And but what an amazing way to have a new lease on life basically, right? That was kind of one of the things you talked about is like, you had some new outlooks, but throughout that whole process, what made you not give up during that? What kept you going during all of that?
So I had helped organizations set huge goals, their BHAGs, and go after them. And just that's what my gift was peak performance. That's what I did for a living
Mhm,
as an executive. And so I started doing exactly as my memories came back and I knew how to do that again. I started doing exactly what I had done in the corporate land before, but
mhm.
it didn't work for me because literally, if I did too much, I would have a seizure. My brain could
Oh,
not
wow.
handle thinking too big. So I had to find a new way to do it. And what I found was a way that works so much better. We,
Mm.
as adults, I'm going to say this, and I say this inside the book a million times. Okay, maybe not a million, but a whole lot of times. The first half of my book is the story of the accident. The second half is how I saw the world through the eyes of a young child in an adult or a 40-year-old's body and the things I got to see and experience. And I say this all the time throughout the context of it. Adults are so complicated. We really overcomplicate everything. So, what I did was broke it down into the tiniest next little step that I could take, that I could take, and that's what really kept me going was that
Right.
teeny tiny little step. And I'm gonna also say for your audience and listeners, I'm gonna believe that we all know that we shouldn't compare ourselves to others and that comparison doesn't help. I didn't compare myself to others because I couldn't take in the outside world and what I was doing. I didn't have the capacity. And that is the most freeing thing in the world. But as my capacity got better, I immediately started comparing myself again. Now think about
Mm,
this. I couldn't make my hands clap together. I had
mm,
no fine motor skills. If I had compared myself to anybody around me who was doing all kinds of things I couldn't do,
mhm,
I would have given up so much faster
mhm,
in
mhm,
that moment. So I think the big piece for me was I didn't compare, not because I chose not to, but because I couldn't. I didn't have the capacity. But as I got that ability back, I immediately just started triggering myself, going, wait, I'm comparing. And I would stop it in its tracks. And I think that is a huge propellant of how I made it back to where I was because I'm not comparing Andrea having her own podcast and, you know, speaking about marketing all over the country to
mhm,
my being able to move one little pea from one little cup to another cup. I'm
mhm,
not
mhm.
comparing it anymore. So I
Right.
don't compare myself at all anymore, but I have to stop myself from doing it because it is a very natural tendency for most of us.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely something I struggle with all the time. And I know that social media and things like that don't help. And it's hard to, stay in our lanes and stuff like that. And even in, places that like Launch Club that are super supportive places, it's easy to sometimes be like, oh, look at them. They're doing so well.
So
And
instead of look at them, they're doing so well, it's heck yeah, that's
yeah, I
great for
know.
them. And then you
I
just let
know.
it go. And then you
Yeah,
just let it
exactly.
go. And it's so much easier to let it go if you're celebrating the other person
Yeah,
because you don't
for
look
sure.
at yourself, you only look at them.
Right, for sure. That's a great lesson. I love that. And I definitely I feel like actually as I've gotten older, I've been better at that. Even in the last like 5 years, I've been able to be like, hey, that's awesome. And I'm looking at that thing and having that little bit of comparison, envy, or whatever it might be, because I would like to be there and that's possible and that's
Yes.
awesome. And yeah, so
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So that's great. So then, so like, I- I- how did you change throughout this process? I mean, were you kind of was 1.0 totally different than 2.0, Tina 2.0, or
I love
what?
that. I love that question so much. Tina 1.0 and Tina 2.0 were very similar, but they had stark differences. So Tina 2.0, I went back to do what I had done before, and I returned to doing what I knew how to do because, frankly, that's all I had the capacity for. I didn't have the capacity to learn something new. So I got most of my memories back. I got back much of my functioning. I clearly can talk and act a little bit better than a 7-year-old, although sometimes I still act like a 7-year-old. But the whole reality is I did what I could do, and I went back to being an executive doing the same things that I had done before. That was Tina 2.0. But what I realized is the real big difference in her and in me is that prior to my accident, I was all about aspiring. I wanted to aspire before I expired.
Mhm.
Now, I really just want to inspire before I
Mm,
expire. I
I love
changed
that.
that focus and that view. And then once I got to the place where I was able and had capacity, I decided that I had helped organizations grow long enough, help them make money long enough. It was time for me to help people reach their goals and dreams and not corporations. And that's
Mhm.
where Tina 3.0 came into place.
Awesome. And then how long was that between 2.0 and 3.0? What was the time frame there?
So my accident, was my last surgeries were 10 years after my accident,
Mhm.
and then I
Mhm.
still stayed in Tina 2.0 for a little while after that.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and then so I would say in a 5-year range, Tina
Yeah.
3.0.
Mhm.
The real crux of Tina 3.0 has been in the last 18 to 24 months, though.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because the book came out in October, or is it September 22? What was the
It was in actually, so long story short, it came out
Yeah.
twice. It came out
Oh,
twice.
okay.
Because here's
Okay.
the thing, and I want some of your listeners to know that you don't have to be ready. You don't have to
Yeah.
be ready to do something. So I'd written my book and I was weeks and weeks and weeks away from it being finalized, printed, and everything else. And I had an opportunity to speak on a very large stage. And they said, "But you will have your book with you, right?" I'm like, "Yes, I will." And I knew I was still weeks and weeks and weeks away, and this event was not weeks and weeks away. So I had to take it live with the pilot group so that I could, in fact, have my book available to have that stage and have that
Yeah.
influence in that audience. And that book sold enough copies in that at that specific event that I became a bestseller just from that event. Had I not gone prepared or had I said, I'm not ready, I would not have hit that. I had
Yeah.
I became number one bestseller when it went officially live, which was on the 15th anniversary of my accident last October. And then
Okay.
after that, we dropped the Audible version and the Kindle version over time as well. So it's
Yeah.
really been since October that the momentum of this story being out in the world has happened and so many opportunities to share the
Yeah.
possibility. I say to people all the time, I went from literally from A to Z. I'm now a best-selling author speaking in places I've never even heard of before or knew anyone in. I was in
Yeah.
South Africa the other day. Seriously, I A to Z is where my life has gone. And
Yeah.
I know you can go from your H to your P.
Your H to your P?
Because I went from A to Z. Most people don't have to cross the chasm as wide as I did.
Oh,
Most
yeah,
people
yeah, yeah,
starting
yeah.
over. So I say you go from your H to your P. You can do that. If I can do A to Z, you can do H to P.
Yeah,
You can do
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's not, obviously not everyone wants to start over again as a 3-year-old when they're
right.
turned 40, So, I mean, I think that's the amazing story is that you can make huge changes, huge strides and and then just, reinvent yourself multiple times. Like that's the thing that I think has been a great thing coming out of this podcast is talking to people who have had several iterations like you, like 3.0, but even 40 plus several iterations. It doesn't, we're not always choosing our 30-year path. We could be just choosing the path for now that is calling to us that we feel inspired by and that we feel that we have things to give to. So That's great. That's great. And so what was the transition like from, kind of the corporate to like your own business and doing the coaching?
Well, initially, most of my clients were actually people that I had worked with before in corporate. So I
Mhm.
actually did a soft landing into a world where I already had people that were there. And
Right.
I continued to work with them, but then building it up was not at all what I expected it to be. Truly was not at all what I expected it to be. In fact, in corporate, I just knew that I would tell somebody, I have a coaching spot open, and it would be gone in 2.5 seconds because they
Mhm.
knew me, they knew my story. I didn't have to market, I didn't have to
Right.
share who I was. And then stepping into the marketing world and realizing there's this whole thing that you
Yeah.
have to learn. I was like, wow, okay, eye opening, quite eye opening. And knowing that you've got experts that can help you was a really huge piece of that. But it was not at all. I mean, you don't you don't expect to step out of something that you're tremendously successful with and feel like you're back in kindergarten again. And that's really what
Mhm.
it felt like for me. I was starting over in kindergarten. But the reality of it is, once you actually got, or as I call it, got my sea legs, and I started to understand more of it and I learned the nuances of it, it started to grow very quickly for me. And that's why I said I'm now a best-selling author. I'm on stages around the world. And I had so many one-on-one coaching clients last year that I actually stopped doing one-on-one coaching because it was just
Mm,
too much for me in what I was
mm.
doing. So I slowed down the extent of the one-on-one coaching. But the reality is it is an adjustment. It is a huge adjustment. And there were times when I went, what am I doing? It would be so much easier to go back to what I already am doing, what I already knew, and all of that. And then I'm like, no, I'm doing this for a very important reason. And that's
Yeah.
that people don't have the same resources corporations do. And I want them to have this because, frankly, too many people don't get a second chance like I did. And
Mhm.
your days are not infinite. You have only so much time to do what you want to do, and to waste one of them not living to your full potential, just it kills me inside, and I don't want people to live that way. So my why was helping people, more people, reach their goals so that we create a better world for everybody. And at the end of the day, it was exactly that that kept me going through those moments of, are you kidding me? I have to do one more thing. What is this thing you're talking about? You and I had
Yeah.
a conversation once about marketing, and we were talking about it. I don't know if you remember this. We were at the event, and you asked me about something. I'm like, I don't even have a good answer for that.
Oh my gosh, it is. It's overwhelming, and I think what I like about you, you said earlier, I think that is a key, is just breaking everything down into the smallest chunks possible.
Yeah,
Because we know, hey, we need to put a speakers reel together, and it's like, oh my god, that sounds, exhausting and crazy, and I don't even know how that works or whatever, or where I start, or do I edit it, or all that stuff. But it's like, okay, what is the smallest step possible? It might be like, find one of the videos that'll go in there, or identify event, something that's tiny that feels super manageable is the best way to do that, right? So I it is overwhelming, all this online branding, all this online marketing, and but it's necessary. We have to, you have to do it unless you have some sort of already built in uh, pool of clients like you would at corporate or something like that,
right.
so yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that when you break it down into the tiny steps, you don't feel the overwhelm nearly as much. And
right,
you also get the dopamine over and over and over for accomplishing that little thing, and we know that our brain loves the dopamine, and
yeah,
we keep moving forward. If you're just looking at the big thing, you never feel like you accomplish anything, and that was what I started out with. I was like, "I'm gonna do this." Like, "Wait a minute, I'm not launching a course, I'm figuring out how to build a list first. Let's start there.
yeah,
Let's back this
yeah.
back down." And so I
uh,
think when we just use our natural body's rhythms of success, it really does make a huge difference, and the tinier the step,
yeah.
sometimes the further you travel with it.
Right, right. I love crossing things off. I love that.
Yes.
It's just so awesome. So When you have felt a little overwhelmed during this whole journey, how did you come back? I mean, for sure, relearning how to walk and learn and all that stuff has got to be completely overwhelming, and as well as building the business. How what has kept you going and getting that mojo back in your life?
So I'm a person of deep faith. So faith has helped me along this journey for certain. The
Hmm.
second thing that I think really played a huge role for me is again taking those tiny steps and staying focused. And that's a huge word that a lot of us don't have these days. And that's focus. We have so much distraction. The
Hmm.
focus is what really helped me the most because I couldn't focus on multiple things at one time. I only had the one. And so I
Hmm.
think along the way with everything, it's focus and having the right goals in place, having the right supports in place. Accountability matters so very, very much. I know I joked earlier that I'm tired of all of the therapies, but my occupational therapist, I knew good and well that I had to go in there and I was going to have to show her the log of everything that I did. And when you
Hmm.
walk into something and you know someone's counting on you for something, you're more likely to achieve it. And accountability is built the exact same way. It is just having all of the mechanisms in place with having your goals, having your vision, having knowing your values so you can make decisions quickly, having then also some accountability baked in is huge to getting over that overwhelm. But I always start my day also with very specific rituals and habits to make sure that I keep my overwhelm at bay the best I can.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I'd love to hear, can you share some of that, some of the things, your morning ritual that helps
Sure.
you kick things off in a good way?
Be glad to. I actually use hacks. That's what I do because, who doesn't like to start the day off feeling successful? It changes your whole attitude, right? So
Mhm,
I this is something I've had people do for a very, very long time, and that is create the first 3 things that you're gonna do when you get out of bed in the morning. And then when I say create them, I mean, like, write them down on a list the night before. So have your list ready the night before, and they are the most simplistic things you can possibly think of. Like, maybe it is, put on my shoes. Maybe it is get out my clothes. Whatever it is that's like really quick that you can do all 3 things within 5 minutes, and one of them is make the bed, okay? Make your bed when you get out of it. Why do you make your bed? Not because you really care about making your bed, but because you start the day with a sense of accomplishment. And when you have a
mhm,
sense of accomplishment, overwhelm doesn't come at you as hard. So
mhm,
creating those 3 things that I do right away when I get out of bed in the morning in the first 5 minutes. So I start the day. It's really jump starting your day. That's what it really does. And then the other thing that I do is start with gratitude, always starting with gratitude. And the gratitude for me is 5 unduplicated things that I write down every morning and every night. And they're unduplicated. So think about this. You have thousands of them by the end of, well, in my case, I actually think I'm over 45,000 of them I have at this point. And I
wow,
sit down. This is what I do on New Year's Eve. I spend my New Year's Eve reading back through my year of gratitude because it is
oh,
like, holy mackerel when you actually see all the things that you were grateful for throughout the year.
yep.
It's an amazing thing. And it starts your year off the right way as well.
Yeah, I love that. That is great to write them down. That's so good. Yeah, we have at our dinner table, we all go around and talk about one thing we were grateful for the day. But I love the idea of writing it down so that you can. That's such a great thing to do on New Year's. Awesome.
So, Andrew, one of the reasons I wrote them down is because I couldn't remember them for a long time. So, I would say something out loud, and then the next day I'd be like, "What was that? I don't remember," because my memory is so bad. So, I started writing them down just for that simple sake. And it's interesting to me, even though my memory is really good today compared to back then, I still forget things from last month or last 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And so at the end of the year, I'm like, "Wait, I did do that. I forgot all about it." So it really does make for a great experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and I know, you had kind of touched on the support and things like that, support that you had throughout this. Tell us a little bit about the support you've had with friends, family. How did that play into everything that you've done with Tina 2.0 and 3.0?
Wow. So I would not be able to do what I'm doing today if it was not for friends and family, truly. I literally needed someone to help me walk. I needed care 24/7. In
Mhm.
fact, the name of my book is Standing Strong, and it's only named that because my husband at the time, he's still my husband, but in the moment, he knew I was standing up and I would wobble. My gait was so bad, I literally would wobble back and forth. And so he went to grab my arm and I held up one finger. And he knew in the moment that all that meant to him was, I'm processing something. Give me some space. That was
Mhm.
my cue to him to give me space. And so I held up my finger and he kept asking me, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I finally was able to put three words together. And this is the very first time I was able to stand on my own after my accident. And I said, I stand strong.
Mhm.
So I named it Standing Strong. I was going to name it
Mhm.
I was going to name it Stand Strong, but we put it out in front of a focus group because you do that, and
Mhm.
the focus group said it sounded like a protest book, so we decided not to
Mm.
do that. Instead, we
Mhm.
named it Standing Strong, and so
Mhm.
that's so important to me is to know that you have to have a support network if you want to be able to stand strong.
Yeah, yeah, that is great, and I definitely feel like that's, as entrepreneurs as well, that I feel like that is so key in success is just connecting to other entrepreneurs. It's a lonely business. It can be challenging when you don't know what you're going to do next, what the best route is, and that's why I love Launch Club as well. Is just having that great community of people doing all different kinds of things. So it's not just B2B, it's B2C as well. It's all different types of businesses, and it's so inspiring. So yes, love that, love that. So let's see if there was had one other question I was going to make sure I asked you, and that was, oh yeah, so you know, uh, like how did this, having to do this at age 40, and then now even launching your business at a time where people aren't necessarily thinking of launching a business in their 50s sometimes. How has being older contributed to your success in being successful with these two endeavors here?
I think that with age comes wisdom. I
Mm.
think that you learn a lot more about yourself along the way. I will also add for Mother's Day, my family decided that they were going to help me make something else come true for me that I've said out loud several times I want to do, and now I'm going to do. And that's I'm starting to take flying lessons because I want to become a
Oh,
pilot as well.
wow.
So, and I'm now past after you've had a traumatic brain injury, you can't fly for a period of time, and I'm now far enough out that I can actually fly.
Wow.
So what is it about it? It's the freedom to make the choice. And I think the older you get, the more you realize that your days are more precious. I realize that more than most people do, but there's no time to wait to actually live your
Yeah.
potential. And
Mhm.
frankly, I believe many of us live with potential still left inside of us. I don't
Mm.
intend to leave a single ounce when I leave.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, that's very true. I have a joke about how, just wish someone would tell me, "You're done. You have no more potential." So, oh, man, it's always an evolution. We're never done, right? It's always
Never done.
more to do in this world. So
But I think that after you're in your later years also, Andrea, I think the thing
mhm,
that really happens is you realize what lights you up and you don't worry about what others want you to do or what you feel like you
mhm,
should do. I actually say all the time,
mhm,
stop shoulding on yourself. Don't should
mhm.
on yourself anymore. Just go forward with what it is you know you need to do or want to do. And then you actually, it's freedom that comes as you get older.
Right, right. Love that. Yep. So true. So true. Well, this has been so fun. And as you know, I love to ask people for an inspirational quote or saying or something that really motivates them. So I'd love to have you share that with our listeners here.
I would love to. I actually have one that it's from an author. Her name is Hillary DePiano, as I said it correctly. We all get the exact same 365 days. The only difference is what we do with them.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Exactly. We just have to make the most of our time.
Yeah.
So Awesome. Well, Tina, thank you so much for being with us, for being an inspiration. Thanks for your so much for your book. I can't read. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to get that right now and take a look and read that because it sounds like really amazing. And I know I've heard from people who have talked about how great that book is. So we'll have all the links in our show notes here. Anything else you want to leave with our listeners here?
If I may, I absolutely would love to leave you with this thought, and that's that I believe that the biggest challenge in our life is to become everything that we have the possibility of becoming. And the reason I wrote this book and shared the lessons inside of it is so that you too can become unstoppable at becoming what's possible in your life. And that is my challenge for each of you.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Tina. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Hello, late starters. It's your host, Andrea Vall. And today I am joined by the amazing Tina Brandau. She is a premier
You gotta send me that clip. Oh my
changing your career for you.
Oh my gosh, that's priceless. Now we're
Okay.
talking about that story.
I'm going to enunciate this time. Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.